here.
Something really wild.
Yeah.
Then we go.
Like, I'm going to, if we, not this time, because it's also just not that important of a topic, but if we were going to do a 3-hour breakdown of the JQ, like, we're going to need to, like, do the little CIA, like, voice thing.
The modulator?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I could probably do a modulator pretty easy.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Work Hard. I have a guest with me today. Jason's out. So I brought in a personal friend, Chase. I almost said your full name. That's funny. Right off the rip. When I was in college, I was a camp counselor one year, and we had like camp counselor names. We didn't use our real names. Mm-hmm. And there was one girl that I worked with, and every single time I referred to her by her first name on accident.
That's all right. We'll fix it in post.
Every single time. And every kid at camp knew her name the whole time I was working because I could not stop doing it. And she got real upset. The Oliva is a great pick.
Yes.
I was going to text when you said, I'm going to get cigars. What do you want? I was like, I almost texted. I just forgot to, but I almost was like, I'm a big Connecticut Reserve fan. And here they are.
Well,
you also got a Hemingway. This might be my favorite cigar of all time. This is an incredible selection.
Look, top 5 picks only. You know?
Yeah.
Life's too short for a bad cigar.
Life is too short for a bad cigar. And the Connecticut Reserve is such a good one. I just got the famous smokeshop.com or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
No. Tell me about it.
It's just a cigar retailer online. I just got their Connecticut Cream Monster deal where you get like 15 cigars for like $100, and or like 20 cigars for $100. Something wild.
See, I can't buy that many cigars at one time because then I'll just smoke them all day.
Yeah. I've got my my little brother gave me his humidor, and it's very nice. It's like a really nice finished pine or whatever they make humidors out of. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I've all the boys got me back into pipe smoking now. So Maddie got me a pipe for Christmas, and I've been enjoying that.
Okay. The pipe. I still can't do it, dude. Jason smokes a pipe, I guess, pretty consistently now. He smokes at least every time we're together. Every time we record, he smokes.
I mean, it's definitely harder on the technique, but it's so much simpler to do on a multi-time basis throughout the day. Like I was smoking mine, just taking the Christmas lights down today. That multitasking.
I've gotten really into cigarillos, small cigars, like cigarette-sized cigars. That's my multi times a day.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fit in more than one full-length cigar.
Dude, no shot. Mm-hmm. And then to smoke, like, I don't know, dude, to smoke a full cigar every day is heavy.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll work our way up to Churchill status. Well, Chase, is there anything you want the folks at home to know about you? Where you live, your full name, where you work, anything like that?
Live pretty close to you. We're out here in the Pine Curtain of East Texas,
yes.
Having a good time, and kind of similar stories. We both left a fairly urban environment and intentionally came out here for the geographical and the cultural offerings, and I think so far we found it to our liking.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was a moment when we first met, and I had a joke with Emily that you worked for the FBI, that you were definitely a rat.
I do not remember this.
Okay. I don't know if I ever told you, but the joke was that I was like, he's definitely in the FBI. Every time we talk, he talks about balaclava time, small unit tactics, and he works downtown, and he's an attorney. So
allegedly.
Allegedly an attorney. So I was like, for sure, this guy is definitely a plant. I'm going to get arrested. And then you came and talked to me about a group, and I was like, okay, so it's for sure Chase is in the FBI.
Well, how do you know I'm not now?
I'm cautious, dude.
Yeah. So we'll keep it PG-13 then in this conversation.
Maybe. I have been thinking a lot about IQ distributions lately.
Really?
No, but I do. I follow this. I follow a guy, not Steve Saylor, someone else who talks a lot about. He's like a little Steve Saylor, and he was posting about how IQ distributions can't account for behaviors on an individual level.
Right.
Like they don't. It's not a good indicator for how someone's going to act individually. But they're like, you could set your watch to them on group.
That's true.
Start to define people by group statistics. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
That's something I always tell my fellow internet racists is that you could almost certainly, if you had to take a gamble, if you were a betting man and you had to bet whether or not a violent criminal was black, you would obviously be incentivized to bet that it was black, that it was a black person.
Right.
But if you took an individual black person and took a bet on whether or not he was a violent criminal, you would be massively incentivized to bet that he was not. Which is an interesting conundrum that you find yourself in.
I don't know if it's a conundrum because you would only face a conundrum if you were trying to apply it in practical use.
If you're trying to be racist.
Right.
Well, dude, what'd you do? How's your weekend? Well, I guess we're mid-weekend, so how's it been so far?
You know what? It hasn't been this way necessarily all the time, but I absolutely crushed today.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Sick.
The baby, slept real well, so I got to sleep in till about 8 a.m. today.
Woo!
And woke up, had a cup of coffee, played with the baby while the wife made breakfast, and then I got up, and ever since then, since you came here, I've been just working. Got the garage clean, got the Christmas lights down. We got stuff moved into storage. It's that dad life,
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I'm nursing a pretty bad hangover. Yesterday was Emily and I's 4th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We got a hotel room downtown.
Oh, did you get that new one?
Not the Thompson.
Okay.
Not the Thompson. The Thompson I think sucks.
Really?
I haven't been in there. I haven't been in the rooms, but I've been in the well, that's not even true. I haven't been in the lobby. I've looked in there from the front.
Yeah, I've looked through the window like a little
and it looks cool. It looks like okay, but it doesn't look it's just like middle of the mall stuff, dude. Mm-hmm. It's not and the prices for the rooms are ridiculous for what they are. Like it's all vinyl. It's a La Quinta Inn. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to have like a cool boutique hotel, make it a cool boutique hotel that you can charge $300 a night for. Like make it that way. Don't make it.
Yeah, I think they're just counting on supply demand. I think they've got 4 or 5 rooms, maybe 6, and how many other places have a spot right on the square?
Right, nowhere. Yeah. So they get to set their price. So we went to the Greyhound, which is off the square, and it's kind of the same problem. I was hoping that it wasn't going to be. The pictures looked better. Mm-hmm. Same problem. It's just an Art Deco La Quinta Inn. Like it's just in a historic building. So it's not like all the rooms are relatively sparse. The furniture's all like whatever the cheap version of Article is. Article. There's Article.
They didn't have a heart-shaped jacuzzi in the room.
They did not. They did not have any mirrors on the ceiling or anything whack like that.
Man.
But it was okay though. I mean, the bed was huge and the rooms were really big. It's like apartments. So we got a hotel room, and Emily's parents watched the baby, and then I cut out of work early, so we got downtown at like 2. Started drinking. We went to Rick's, which as a restaurant, Rick's blows. Rick's sucks.
But the bar is great.
The bar is awesome.
Do you know the story about that bar?
No.
The bar, like the whole thing, I'm talking where you're sitting, the stuff behind you, all that came out of like a 1940s cruise liner.
Really?
Yeah, and Rick, somehow got it at some auction or what all, and
really,
yeah,
I was sitting there being like, man, their whole setup is so beautiful. Yeah, and I just love downtown because I'm a big fan of the Art Deco style, and it's so cringe if you do it now. Like if you were to go in, well, I guess that's not true. You could do it, but it'd be hard. You'd have to be good at design like anything else, but you could do it without it being cringe. But downtown was built for real, like built in the Gilded Age.
The trouble with for everyone listening, the only art form I understand in this world is architecture.
Yeah.
I can't do music, can't do drawing or other physical art. I understand architecture.
Yeah.
And anytime you get these distinct styles, like we'll talk about Art Deco, the reason why anyone building a new building and trying to emulate that style can't figure it out is because they're not paying attention to the details.
Yeah.
And so, they may put some overhang thing over the door and you look at it and it looks cartoonish. And the reason it's cartoonish is the person is cartoonish. They are trying to slap something on a modern building and exist in the same spirit as someone in the 20s, the booming American empire, the wealth, the excitement, the unfortunate progressivism.
Yeah.
But you can't build something outside of the spirit of that thing. And that's why you see these McMansions and they put columns up and you ask them, well, where's the entablature? And they can't even tell you what an entablature is. But that's why it looks fake, because it is.
Yeah. 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 And people have a very, I think it's just competency distribution in general, like you're just always going to have 1% of everything's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like ever. And everything else is going to suck. And people have a really hard time understanding what makes something beautiful or cool, and so they latch on to odd stuff and try to emulate the feeling they get when they look at something beautiful by creating this thing that they think is relevant to that, and it's just not. So they work themselves into those situations quite often. So anyways, we were at Rick's. Had a couple drinks there. Went shopping. I got this.
Very nice. Where's your AK to go with it?
On my shirt, dude.
Oh, okay.
Got it on my shirt. I'm gonna buy a Zastava.
Okay.
This year, I have a new client, a really big client. And if they close, I'm gonna get a nice fat commission check. And when that happens, I will be getting the Z-Pap
for the vibes.
So we drank there, and then we hit the breweries, went back to the hotel, chilled. Went to the Culture. Have you been to Culture yet?
I have, unfortunately.
You don't like Culture?
No,
dude, it's so good.
Yeah, but you got to wait an hour just to get a hamburger.
We got set immediately.
No, I mean, I used to work literally within a stone's throw of that place, and we would go in there, sit down, and order the simplest food, and it's a bunch of Austinite kind of people that run it.
Yeah.
And don't be wrong, they know how to make good food, but it's not worth 50 minutes at lunch hour to try to go eat there. So
yeah. Getting lunch there would probably be pretty tough.
The mac and cheese was pretty fire.
Mac and cheese is crazy.
Yeah,
it goes loco. Dude, it was so good. And have you been there since they opened the Plaid Rabbit?
No, I've not. I've only heard of it.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty sick.
Yeah,
yeah. And the host takes it very he's not joking, and so he's like, we're like, oh, so we would like to go to the back, and he was like, what do you mean? Like for real was like, what do you mean the back? And he was like, oh, you're saying you have like some words to say to me, and my wife, and he made Emily say the password before
he was going method,
dude. Yes, and then he took us back, and he did like a whole thing where he like knocked on the door, and Winnie's like, all right, stay here. He did he just sold it, and it was a lot of fun. So we did that, and then we left it all in the court, dude.
Yeah.
We went hard. Yeah. The walk back was astounding. That was a long walk home.
Just needed some gutters on the side.
Yeah.
Some rails.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And I got hit on. I got hit on the moment Emily stood up.
It's a bold move.
Yeah. The moment Emily stood up. Emily stood up to go use the restroom. We decided we were going to leave. So I got my cigar out. And because I was going to smoke a cigar walking home, obviously. And I just started wetting the end because I like to get the end a little wet before I cut. Helps with the cut. So I have the cigar in my mouth. And I'm just sitting there for a second, and this girl behind Emily, sitting at the table behind us, goes, "Can we smoke in here?" And I was like, "No, we're just getting ready to leave." So I just getting my cigar ready, and she goes, "Oh, okay." And then I just go back to doing whatever, and then she goes, "Did you come by yourself? Are you alone?" And I went, "No."
She was ready to pounce.
Yeah, I was like, "No, my wife's in the bathroom." Like, you guys have been touching backs this whole time. What are you talking about? Like, she made eye contact with me several. I didn't even catch. Usually, I'm pretty good at catching just people's vibes in general. Mm-hmm. I did not realize she was making eyes at me. We made eye contact several times, and I'd smiled at her, and she had to look past Emily to see me, and so we just started talking. We were talking for a second. I said, "No, my wife's in the bathroom," and she's sitting right next to her friend. And so I was like, "All right, you're going to ask me a dumbass question. I'll ask you a dumbass question." So I was like, "Are you here alone?" And she was like, "Oh, no, I'm here with my friend." And I was like, "Crazy how that works." That's wild. That's crazy. And Emily bailed me out of it. She got there pretty quick. She got back from the bathroom, and Emily was not situationally aware at that point. And so I was like, okay,
perhaps
let's go.
For the better.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, let's go. We got out and we walked out into the thing, and I told Emily what happened. And she was like, that hit a slew of slurs and was very upset. It was pretty funny. And the girl was pretty, so I was like teasing Emily about it all night. I was like, you got competition now. You got to stay on your toes, dude.
Shoot.
Anytime.
Maddie gets upset if we watch a movie with an attractive actress, and I'm like, they work in Hollywood, baby. Like, of course they're going to be good looking, and still, they get worked up.
They do get worked up. I lost I guess it's the garage.
Just let it roll.
Usually I come with something to let Jason talk about.
Okay.
But what's on your mind, dude? What have you been thinking about?
Well, I think it was good timing. I've been thinking about the concept, at least in the purview of this podcast, about vision.
Yeah, okay.
What is it? Why is it important? And then what is it used for? So I guess we could just get into that, but that's kind of been on my mind.
Yeah. Let's dive in. Let me go grab another beer real quick.
We are so back.
We are so back, baby. I almost fell asleep on the way over here. And I got beer, and now I'm alive again. Alive. Oh, yeah, that's also true. You and I are both Zoomers, which means that we get to meme. We get to say memes, and instead of me just having to explain it.
Huge meme
Jason,
guy.
Yeah, huge meme guy. We can actually talk in an internet way. All right, so vision, hit me.
So vision is about looking off and seeing where you want to go.
Okay.
But the nature of vision is that you almost have to come up with it. You're not looking for something. You're creating the image that you want to go pursue. There's an autonomy to it of, you don't look left or right and pick which one, you have to organically come up with what it is you want to work towards.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beginning of a vision. And then once you kind of have it, you've got to start developing it and shaping it and understanding it. And then you've got to develop a strategy to go accomplish what that vision is. So this has been on my mind because my wife and I were expecting our second child. We've been here in Tyler for 3 years, at our home for 2. And I'm kind of at a point where the vision I had for the past really 7-8 years of my life, I've kind of completed it more or less.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the stage where I've operated almost my entire adult life with the same vision, but now I've got to kind of start from ground one. Where does it go from here? And so that's why it's been on my mind, because it's like a muscle I haven't used in so long. And so that's what I'm working on.
Okay. I like that. That ties in. I've talked about it on here before, is that you're an observer primarily. Like, as you're human, one of the primary, if not the primary characteristic of human nature is that you are an observer first. You're not an actor primarily. You're an observer. And that sounds wonky at first if you think of it in terms, if you think of it in a Western sort of modern context, but in the context of maybe some of the people who are writing the Old Testament, that is quite active. They saw the eye, they saw looking, seeing as a matter of projection, not as a matter of intake.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your eyes are lanterns basically, and they project out. They can project out curses. Even you can curse people with a look, give them an evil eye or whatever. But throughout most of human history, like that, eyes are not passive organs; they're active things. And when you are looking at things, when you are properly ordered, when you're a believer, when you are not a chaotic entity, those things that you pay attention to, that you observe, will become ordered, because you're projecting order into the world through your observation.
Okay.
So if you are using vision and projecting, you are observing your future, planning for your future, looking at your future, it will become ordered.
Right.
Which is an interesting link.
Yeah, and if you look at people that have disordered lives, by nature they tend to be passive human beings.
Yes.
And so that's why I think it's so important, especially my understanding of the audience and kind of the mission of this podcast, to what we want to see is people become ordered, because ordered people make ordered communities and they make an ordered world.
Yes.
And so I think before you can put your hand to the plow, you will have to have seen your action of putting your hand to the plow, what it will produce, why it's important. And that's why I think it's kind of like a ground zero, particularly for men. If you don't have a vision to start with, you are going to be bounced around like a ball in a pinball machine, as opposed to like a football flying through the air heading to a direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can, I'm gonna butcher this, but my dad would explain it much better. But so visualization, I mean, it's kind of what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I've also explained this on the show, and I did a bad time last time, but I'll do a bad time this time too. But I don't care. There was and you might even be familiar with this. There was an experiment done, I don't know, 100 years ago, 50 years, I don't know when it was, but they fired particles through like neutrons, like very, very smaller than atoms, through a gradient, or not even through a gradient, like through a barrier, and they had slits in the barrier. So they like shotgun blasted a bunch of neutrons, and what you would have expected, they had another board behind that barrier, and they wanted to see where the markings from the protons and neutrons where they were left on that board behind the original barrier. And what they expected was that the pattern was going to reveal. The pattern that was going to be revealed was the same as the slits in the subsequent board, in the previous board. What they found was that it was not the case. They were chaotic in nature. There were all these different lines that didn't exist in the other board. And so they wanted to see what would happen. Why was that happening? So they basically put a camera, a point of observation, at the point of impact of the protons on the back board. And when they were observing it, the protons hit how you would have expected them to do it. So when there is nothing looking at nothing, we're looking at something. When there's nothing observing reality does not exist because it's total chaos. Now, obviously, we don't live in chaos. The thing I said to Jason is subatomic physics would state that if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. The answer is no. But it obviously makes a sound, and it obviously falls in the woods. Time passes. You can walk up on a tree that no one's seen for 100 years, and it fell, and it's begun to rot. Obviously, things had to be organized such that time could pass, such that that tree could exist, such that it could rot. So it does exist, and when it does fall, it does make a sound, which means that there's someone hearing everything all the time.
Right.
There's someone observing everything all the time. Now, what would you call that? God.
Yahweh.
Yeah. Now, what was I explaining that? What did you just say? What was your thing that you said right before I started talking?
I was talking about vision, about how, particularly for men, but really anybody.
Okay. Yes.
You've got to start with this.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say you're a little observer, because we're made in God's image. So that's the primary thing that humans are, is little observers. Now, when a human being looks at something, it's organized. When you look away, it's disorganized. Now, to what degree God lets it be disorganized, I don't know. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you can use visualization to alter reality. Like you can. This is like a known thing. It's a big thing in fighting. So this is something I can actually personally attest to. Fighters very, very often spend hours a week visualizing, just standing there with their eyes closed in the ring, visualizing themselves winning. Visualizing how they're going to knock their opponent out. It's a very, very common practice. And so if you are visualizing the future, you are in some ways praying, kind of.
Okay.
And I say praying because I'm definitely not going to say manifesting. You know what I mean?
You haven't been watching The Secret lately, have you?
What's The Secret?
Oh, dude, you don't remember this? This came out like somewhere whenever Bush was president. So like kind of early 2000s, I think. And it's all about manifestation. Like these people are like, I'm going to see myself in a red Ferrari and it's just going to be there. Yeah. But there's no connection to that's your visual. Now let's like get into strategy. Let's start in hand. Like it was straight up like A to B. Like if you just have it in your mind, it will just be there. Yeah. And it reminds me a lot of like premillennial dispensational people, like get all wound up about every end times like they get like real worked up in it, and it's just so outside of reason. It kind of reminds me of that. Like definitely some 75-year-olds that usually have QVC on, like they were the ones ordering this movie. Okay. Yeah. And to make it practical, because I do want to be clear that I'm not talking about some sort of like mysticism. Like what I'm saying is that if you visualize things in your head, your subconscious mind, again, and this is precedent on you being an ordered human being. If you visualize things in your head, your subconscious will start to make you take actions that will create the image that you have in your head. That's right. So I'm not talking about something that's impractical. I'm not talking about something pie in the sky.
your subconscious mind will make your hands move in ways that make the Ferrari materialize.
Well, I think the more important point is, we're kind of discussing the operational nature of it.
Yeah.
But the key is understanding the necessity of it.
Okay.
So understanding how it operates is important, but that really just reveals kind of the penultimate point that if you are an ordered person and you want an ordered life, you are going to have to engage in visualization.
Yeah.
And without it, you will leave from a place of order into a more chaotic position. If you don't have that and work from it, then somebody else's or something else's visions are going to act upon you.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I think you're right. I think that's a huge part of, what's the new movie that came out where you should never trust white people, and there's like a civil war.
I'm not the person to ask.
I
think the last time I saw a new movie was Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. That was the last movie that was like new and out that I watched. I don't know if I've really watched a new movie since.
Okay. There's the Netflix movie. It's got the girl from every other movie. What's her freaking name? She's in the Ocean's movies. She's the wife in the Ocean's movies. Yeah, whatever her name is. And then it's got just two of the new black people they recruited. And then there's like a civil war, and like wacky. They use like CRISPR and stuff. Like they like turn on like weather altering weapons and like are like hacking things and stuff. It's like it's a people. I think people say because I'm plugged into the do you know what Zero Hedge is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'm plugged into like Zero Hedge, like finance sort of world, and there's a little bit of like Alex Jones overlap in that world.
Naturally.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys are old and a little dispensational in there, very hopeless in there.
Yeah.
in their being, and so they're like
they're losers.
Yeah, they're losers. They're wealthy losers, but they're losers.
Yeah. Hey, I know a lot of poor winners. So
that's true. A lot of poor. Yeah, winning is a mindset. Anyways, the predictive programming, they love that term.
Mm-hmm.
Predictive programming. They love it. Like which is just it's such a crazy concept to me that you could, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that the movie Civil War that A24 is coming out with, or A24, whatever they are,
is this the they got the redhead guy with the Elton John glasses?
Yes, and he's like, what kind of American are you? Yeah.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. They've got that movie's coming out, and then they've got this Civil War movie coming out, and then they've got these other crappy movies that are kind of in the same vein. And it is to a certain extent, like this predictive programming idea is kind of true. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you don't have, because I think our vision, you and I's vision, and the vision we share with Jason and the rest of our group, the vision we have for the future of America is quite different, even in the short term, than some sort of violent civil war occurring.
So I have a theory.
Yeah.
And the theory is that we'll say guys that are on our side, and this is not an endorsement of everything they say or think, but generally speaking, the Zero Hedge guys, Alex Jones, really anyone that doesn't believe in dismantling children's genitalia is on our side now. And I think a reason why so many of the leaders and also lay people on this side of things, they get so worked up about, a financial collapse that's never going to recover, or a civil war, like these types of things.
CBDCs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think the reason why is they want a reason to not be ashamed of themselves. They want an enemy that is so powerful, an event that is so outside their control that they're justified in their
losing.
In losing. Like they don't want to face the shame of the fact that they were in a war that was winnable and they didn't win. They would rather it be, 100-1 and there's nothing we could do. So we just took it.
Yes, dude. I've been thinking the same thing lately. Yeah. So and so people watch that kind of stuff and they don't have a vision for the future of their communities. They don't have a vision for the future of their country. And so they go, well, why I'll just take this one. I'll take the Civil War vision from Hollywood. And then all of a sudden, you do have a civil war because everybody's kind of expecting it. So, the point I'm ultimately making is that you're right. I mean, vision is this, like, it's such a critical, it's like a worldview. It's as important as a worldview.
Right. And really, it's a vision. That, if like we talked about, like, vision does naturally create actual things later down the road. So if you have, let's just, for the sake of picking a real group, your Bible Belt evangelicals, if all of them have this idea that we're kind of just at the end and it's all going to be made better and we're going to get on our little escape pod. Why do you think America looks the way that it does? Because that was the vision they had for it. And so you compare that, or I should say you contrast that with the Puritans, really the people that founded this nation.
Yeah.
They had a very much a vision that America was going to be the city on a hill.
Yes.
It was going to be a light. And you look at the world that they created versus the world of the past 100 years, really our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. You can't deny that two contrasting visions, and I would argue two contrasting results.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that that's even up for debate. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so it is like, the point that we're making here is that you are, Scripture is very clear. You're a slave to something.
Mm-hmm.
You're a slave. You do not have free will. Humans do not have free will. You are, and that extends to the way you think, even the way you think about the future. So you can be a slave to a vision of the future that is bleak and dark and scary and terrifying and created by your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can, what we believe is tune into the Word of God and have a very bright sort of vision for the future.
Right. And, but to get there, the vision is necessary. You
have to know where you're going.
Right. You have to know where you're going, and you have to have a strategy and then actually implement the strategy. But that's kind of really discussing years and decades. But the beginning point is having that vision. And so I think it's important to talk about what are good visions to have. How do you, when you're in the void of postmodern society, where everything is nothing and up is down, right is wrong, how do you start creating a vision? And then I think later on we can talk about what do you do with your vision once you have it.
Yeah. So how do you start creating a vision?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of it right now. So the reason why this has been on my mind is ever since I was late high school, early college, and this time I was not a believer, but I had what I guess you could call operative religion. Like I believed there was a God. I believed it was the God of the Bible, but I was not a born again believer.
Yeah.
And I was very much not living under the kingship of Christ. I guess I was objectively, but I was not a son.
Yeah.
So even then I had this vision, and what the vision was that I wanted to, unlike the example of my parents, I wanted to be married and never be divorced.
Yeah.
Contrary to my parents, my extended family, I wanted to have lots of children.
Yeah.
Contrary to kind of the suburbia and dense suburbia I grew up in, I wanted to live around trees.
Yeah.
So these are, pretty basic kind of concepts, and they weren't tied to anything in my brain to really like faith or religion, but I was like, this is what I want. And so I just, like you said, I just kept playing that over and over in my head. And I didn't have a grand strategy of how to get there, but I kept the vision, and my step 1 and 2 always just worked towards that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm coming up, I've done 7 years in school, got married during that time, had a baby, moved to the place I wanted to move to. And so that vision, it's not over, but I need to supplement it and perhaps even add on.
It's got to evolve a little
bit. It has to, because I've been talking with my wife about this. There's a sense of I've really accomplished the extent of the vision that I can see.
Yeah.
So I need to start looking further, whether that's further in distance or further in depth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good distinction to think about. That is a very good distinction to think about. Further in depth. Yeah. It's funny. I'm kind of in the same place. Mm-hmm. It's very odd because I grinded for years to get this promotion I just got last week. And now we're in this place of like the visualization of what the next 5 years is going to look like has changed dramatically. Mm-hmm. And it is really critical to have that vision. I used to have a moment in my head when I was in high school of me standing in the doorway of like the entryway from the kitchen to the living room of a house, of my house, and I'm leaning in it, and the sun is coming in from one side of the room, from large windows, spilling into the room, and on the ground sits my blonde wife, playing with our child. And I had that specific moment in my head forever. And now that happens to me, that exact image happens to me 6 times a day.
Right.
And so you're right. I have to find a new image. And one thing that I would want to make note about is that I think, and this is like I was reading an American Reformer article last week about vitalism, which I just had my last week's episode was very much anti-vitalist, anti-neo-vitalist, I think. Well, anti-Nietzschean vitalist, anti-Baptist.
Yeah.
I hate that guy.
Really, you're just homophobic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm homophobic. I said it.
Based.
Yeah, dude. I was like, that is what I said. I was like, it's gay. It is gay.
It is.
But the American Reformer article made a good point, which is that you shouldn't just throw babies out with the bathwater. Mm-hmm. There are aspects of vitalism that, like, it is okay to incorporate into your worldview as a Christian. Aiming at success, aiming at what was the word he was using? I can't remember, but just aiming at things being good, at improving yourself, improving the world around you, having vitality is really not bad. And I think that that's at least in our circles, at least at our church. So I can't speak for anybody else. Maybe other people's experience is different, but at least at our church, I do have the experience that many Christians are like afraid of money.
Yeah. Well, it's been taught to them that way. I don't think it's a natural thing in my understanding of church history. There's always been certain groups that have treated money in a weird way. Like they have I'm talking about more fringe groups throughout the medieval time and stuff like that. But this whole modern evangelical experiment of, just give everything to the poor and also don't try to make a ton of money so you can give more. It's this
stay poor,
give everything away even though you are poor, don't build anything, which we understand just X's and O's. The only way to really help people is to build things. You have to increase wealth so more people can come out of it.
You have to have a boat to throw a life raft from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's many tangents we can go on like the modern American kind of church and its theology, but ultimately, this view of money is really tied to how they view dominion.
Yeah.
And what the goal or what the mission of man is, and it's failed. So it's kind of like the feminist thing. They're still running their mouths, but the experiment already failed, and we'll catch up to the consequences to such an extent that everyone will look back on, wow, what a bunch of retards.
Yeah, yeah. And so the point I want to make is that it is okay if watching videos of Porsches is what gets you to stand up and go to work so you can provide for your family, so you can think in your head, I'm going to own a Porsche one day. That's okay.
I would say it's okay. I wouldn't necessarily. That wouldn't be like my bait to throw out of. Like,
sure, pick a bait, anything. Like but if there's a material thing that the point I'm trying to make is that when you develop this vision, you need to be aware that in the vision, there's going to be material existence. Right. It's not this. We're talking about something very practical here. Is what we're saying.
Yeah, we're not being Gnostics. We're not trying to distinguish the physical and the spiritual, and one's good and one's evil. They are in man made one.
Right.
And so, but like going back to the discussion on the material, I think it would be important to make sure your material, if you're going to have something material, let's say like your vision of being in the home.
Yeah.
The home is a material thing.
Right.
But it's really tied to a transcendental reality of building a family. And so that's why I love Porsches. If I had $100K just lying around, I'd probably go pick one up. But you can't have that devoid of a transcendental tie.
Certainly.
And I think that's why so many people really fail in this department is their visions are bad. Their vision is just them on a yacht.
It's like Andrew Tate.
Yeah, Andrew Tate, or what was Dan Bilzerian. Like, that is an example of you can have a vision for that, and it may work out for you. The problem is, I would be worried if it worked out for you. That would be scary. Right. That would mean that there's nobody there holding a thumb on your head, making sure that you are more Christ-like, which means but somebody's not looking out for you. That's a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. You know, we're kind of living in the post boomer latchkey kid era where a lot of people, the norm is no accountability. There is no objective standard, so anything's acceptable. Yeah. And so it's kind of hard to say the average person's going to have people around them, which, hey, this is a good time to think about who's around you to keep you on the path. Certainly. Yeah. The point I'm ultimately trying to make is that if Nick Saban talks about or at least once has talked about how every morning he eats 2 moon pies. Yeah. No, it's the oatmeal cream pie. Oatmeal cream pies? Okay. So he's eating oatmeal cream pies every morning. And he says you got to have something that's going to get you up in the morning. Now, whether or not Nick Saban has some sort of transcendental tie for oatmeal cream pies, I don't know. Maybe he does. But I can tell you that Nick Saban wanting oatmeal cream pies and that causing him to get up every morning has created, I don't know, one of the biggest cultural influences in the West since the Bible? Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a time where what used to be the position of who people looked up to used to be held by people with military exploits. Right. Now it's still related, but now it's in a non-life and death environment in sports. So I think these coaches and these athletes have kind of, I would argue, unfortunately, but they've taken over the Alexander the Great figure in our day. Yeah. Yeah. So the point that I'm making is that your desire, you can, God can use your desire to achieve
material gain very well. And if that's going to happen, just let it happen. Like if you are like, if you're like me and you're spending, I don't know, let's call it 45 minutes every night watching videos of Brabus custom Porsches. If that's one of the thoughts that you have to have in the moment when you're scared, things are not going well, and you have to take the next step, or something's hard, you want to give up, whatever. If the thought in that moment is of a Porsche and going, if I don't do this, I won't get the Porsche. That's okay. Because what else is going to occur when you don't give up and you continue is the world around you is going to be a little bit more organized for the glory of God.
Right.
And so what the point that I'm ultimately trying to make is that I really, really want to reintroduce like this idea that it's okay for Christians to dream.
I don't think it's okay. I think it's necessary. Like I think it's a duty, not an option.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of your dream, obviously the goal, the like, it has to be a supporting role. It can't be the primary role. But part of your dream is that you want to live in a specific style of really big house. Like is the house tied to some sort of transcendental, idea of the good? Yes. But is the style of the house? No. So, but if for me, classic colonial revivalist houses are what really rev my engine.
Yeah. I love me a good, federal,
Yes.
little, colonnade in the front.
Yep.
It's nice.
Yeah. And so that's when I'm dreaming in my head, I'm dreaming not of this sort of miasmic idea of a house. I'm dreaming of a specific house,
right,
and a specific car, and a specific looking wife, and a specific style of clothes. And like those are the things that get me going. And when I get going, hopefully, I hope at least that when I get going, the things I'm doing while I'm going are glorifying to God.
Right.
So that's the point. That's the only point that I'm making, and it's a side point. It's not that important, but I do. I have felt guilt in the past about loving material things because I am a real, like I was raised with money. I'm a real stickler for the finer things.
Yeah, I think we had a pretty similar childhood in terms of like exposure to things or not, and here's the thing, I'm not ashamed of it because one, it wasn't in my control.
Right.
And two, it really is a blessing in some ways. I never worried about paying for a car until I was basically done with school.
Yeah.
So, that obviously has good things and bad things, but it really depends on how you're going to take that. But if you can bless your child with a means of transportation and they're not worried about having to fix it every week, and they use that energy to start creating their vision,
right,
and start going out into the world and doing things that are good to the glory of God, that's a good thing. And people naturally they tend to be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
Like if you're not a zero to hero, then you're not the real deal. And
right.
I would argue, one, those are not very common. Yeah. I love those stories, but it's not that common. And two, what do you want for your children? I don't need them to fly on a private plane, but I want them to have more than I had, just like my father wanted me to have more than I had. And we only go back to my great-grandfather and my grandfather. They had dirt floors. I mean, that's kind of weird to think about in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
You go from dirt floors to, now I have a great job. As a young man, in the worst time to try to get into a house, I was able to buy one, live in a very peaceful area. Those are blessings from other men's visions.
Yeah.
And that's why you've got to do it now, because Lord willing, you have generations coming after you, and you need to start engaging with that.
Yeah. Certainly.
And you got to have a vision before you can engage with it.
Right. You have to have a plan. And maybe your who's the who's in charge of World War II? Patton?
No, so Eisenhower was over all.
Who's the general?
There are several generals.
Who's the one? Who's the guy?
Eisenhower.
He oversaw. Eisenhower was a general.
Yeah, he was the commander of the entire Allied force, and then
he's got that quote. What's the quotes? Planning for battle is absolutely essential. The act of planning for battle is absolutely essential, but the plans themselves are totally useless.
Yeah, I don't recall that quote.
Him or one of the generals that have to do with World War II.
Yeah, I mean,
it's one of my favorite quotes of all time.
Yeah, there's a very common, I don't know if it's attributed to anyone in particular, but there's a military quote that no plan survives first contact with the enemy, which is true.
Yeah.
But we're not really discussing, like I think there's a distinction between the vision and what you're referring to as the plan, or what I would call strategy.
Right. Yeah. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the vision at this point. I'm talking about.
So
strategy.
we're moving on. We've got the vision, right? We've got a direction.
Yes.
Like what is at the end of this road, and so once you've got that, you've got to then progress into really kind of the practical sense of how do we get there. And I think the first thing is you've got to come up with your first couple steps. You don't need to draw out, like you said, the battle plans are going to get thrown out the window when the enemy gets to play their part. Because they're not going to let you implement your plan perfectly. They're going to counter, they're going to flank, and you're going to have all this. So I think you got to start with your next two steps.
Yeah.
What's in front of you? And you got to start thinking, how do I do that? Why am I choosing that versus another thing? And I think that's where we should delve into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about that. Oh, the nitro crack of a Guinness. Dude, I hate Guinness. And I think I find it so personally offensive because I bought Guinness once thinking it was going to taste totally different, and I wanted it to taste a certain way. And then it didn't, and it ruined my Sunday. And so I think that's why I don't like Guinness.
To each their own.
Strategy. If you were a vision-free, well, we've already established you've established a vision. Now you have a vision. Now you're 20 years old. You're 19. You're 25. Maybe you're 40. I don't know why you'd be listening to this, but maybe you are.
Maybe you're just a lost soul.
Yeah, maybe you're a lost soul looking to be found. What are you doing? Chase, put yourself in this person's position. What are you doing to figure out your first step, your first two steps? Are you Googling? Are you asking ChatGPT?
No.
Are you asking your dad? Are you asking your mom? Are you...
It would be incumbent. I think first, so let's say we have a vision, and let's pick what I think is a good vision, and one that has returned to coming into vogue as a reaction to the trash world around us. So I think that vision is a
homestead.
It could be a homestead, but let's just say a home that operates on a single income.
Yeah.
You have a pretty pleasant wife. You have at least a couple children, if not more, and you have relationships with other people in a community. Doesn't have to be anything formal, but you kind of like Mayberry, your neighbor, you live in a peaceful, productive life. I think that's kind of a common vision.
Yeah.
And so let's say that's at least where you're starting. I think in order to develop a strategy, you have to understand what makes those things. So what I would do is I would say the first part of this is really, people might think it's the girl, but it's not. It's your ability to generate wealth. You're going to have money to have a home, to be able to move out of whatever situation you're in. So you would need to start understanding what is money, how do you make it, what do you do with it once you've made it, and how can you, not get mega rich, again, because that's just not statistically a likely event.
Right.
But probably what you want is an independent means of making money. You don't want to go to school, go work for some major corporation, be taking the HR training, being, very lowly paid. You want some independence so that you can move and progress in achieving this vision. So I would start understanding how to make money, how to run a business, how to manage money, things like that. And then you go to, okay, you're going to need to get married to accomplish this vision. I would start understanding what is marriage. What is it that women naturally look for in a man, the type of woman you want. I would start understanding these things in a level before I could really decide what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
You can't go out and start a business without having at least a base understanding of concepts such as supply and demand, what are market forces and what's indications they come or go, things like that. You want to understand your vision so you can start implementing something that'll get you there.
Certainly. Yeah, that's a very good point. You do want to understand your vision. Yeah. And the do you know who Naval Ravikant is?
I don't.
He's a serial entrepreneur, tech guy, Indian dude. He's one of the few Indians that doesn't poop in public.
Wow. Him and Vivek, I guess. Really,
yeah.
Breaking the stereotype.
Really breaking the stereotype. Have you heard about the Canadian Jeets?
No.
The Canadian Jeets are, first of all, they call them Jeets in Canada. How sick is that?
We could implement
I'm
that.
calling them Jeets.
All
That's
right.
my favorite new slur. Calling Indian people Jeets is awesome. So Canadians call them Jeets, and they are what's the Canada has a border that is a part of more than one of the Great Lakes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So whichever one is the high end, the beach that the like White Sands, nice beach. I think it's Erie.
Okay.
But there's all these Jeet immigrants that are being brought in, and
where are they not being brought in?
I don't, dude. Where are they? Why are there so many of them?
I'm
They're
not
bringing
kidding.
them into every country. How are there so many of them?
Look, literally where I grew up at my high school, so like that small of a district zoning, they basically don't have a football team anymore because because the population of that district is so Indian and they don't play football. They basically can barely even field a team.
That's awesome. That is crazy.
I don't know if I'd say that's awesome.
It's not awesome in a good sense. It's awesome in my world and in the world of things that like telling stories and making jokes. That is awesome.
I'm sure the chess team is all state.
I bet it's terrible. They're not that smart, dude. There's like 6 of them that got IT training.
Yeah, but they work hard. I mean,
I don't think they work hard either.
Really?
I don't think so, dude. I'm in the tech world, right? I'm on the front lines with them. Now, obviously, there is an overrepresentation of Indian guys in tech.
You don't say.
And there are a lot of them that are very smart. But the overarching stereotype is that they are retarded support people who need to have their hands held through some of the most they're if you bring in like an Indian IT support firm, your company's done for. Like that's a sign of death in the tech world. So they're not really that smart, and they're not really that hardworking. I think it's probably just their outliers are so high that it makes up for the bulk of the population being like for real, no frontal lobe, having eyes crossed, smelly, retards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at the country as a whole, it's awful. It's one of the worst places on the planet.
Again, how are they? The infant death rate in that country is insane. The amount of dead children required to reach this global population of Indians is got to be crazy.
Yeah. Churn and burn.
Dude, it's wild. So anyways, in Lake Erie, they have all these Jeets, and they're importing them. And I guess along Lake Erie is sort of the, or part of it, somewhere around that area, there is a Martha's Vineyard style neighborhood.
I love it.
Community. And the Indian guys are just walking up and down the beach, pooping, throwing trash wherever they want. They just openly trespassing. The homeowners are coming out being like, please get off my property. This isn't a public beach. I own this part of the beach.
Wow, how racist of them.
Yeah, and they don't care. The Indian guys don't care. They don't speak English. They don't understand what that means. Like, and they're just soiling this like beautiful 3 miles of beach. They're just showing up and like burying themselves in the sand, leaving their trash, taking dumps.
Having a good time.
Having a good time, dude.
Just guys being dudes.
Just guys being dudes, dude. Hanging out. Wearing stinky polo shirts and sandals. Crazy. What were we talking about before that?
Man, I don't know.
We were talking about strategy and steps.
Right.
How did we start talking about Indians?
I was talking about how they took over like all of my hometown. Like the whole place is just Indian bazaars now.
That's so wild. That's so wild. Anyways, whatever we could just start over with the strategy. So I'd asked, how do you decide? You were talking about understanding money, understanding wealth generation.
You got to understand the thing you're looking at, right? Like if you're seeing the family, if you're seeing some form of independence or success monetarily to provide for that family, you've got to start understanding the nature of those things.
Yeah.
So
your step one is is learning.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I cannot, and this can also be a personality thing. Some people are really confident and kind of flying by the wheel.
Yeah, it's me.
And I don't have to know everything, but I'm a strategy guy. Like I basically, if I've got something, let's say I got something at work and there's a dispute that I'm working on, I basically have minimum 3 trains of thought of, if I do X, I think it could go one of 2 ways, and I draw out these maps. I'm visualizing what that might look like to then work backwards. So anyways, I'm a big learn what you can about the thing.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be helpful. I think, for example, the phenomena of today of, men, or really boys, having this view of women that is so negative, which it's not hard to get that. I mean, right. I can understand, I can empathize, but the problem is it's not that real. There's a buddy of mine, and he's very much ready to settle down, and he spent all this time going on these dating apps.
Yeah.
And he's telling me these horror stories and whatever, and I was like, well, really, you could see them. You could see the signs. You can read the bios. You knew what you're getting into, and also, I offered ways that I think he could meet really nice girls, and I don't think any of those plans have been implemented. So I think there's a lot of bias in people's beliefs. They want it to be that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's very much what you had said earlier about about a person with a dispensational mind wanting to have the responsibility of their future taken from them by an all-powerful enemy.
Because if Klaus Schwab is the reason why no one wants to marry you, that's easier than saying you don't work out, you don't work hard, you're
a loser.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have life, you don't have options, you don't have vision.
You watch, and don't get me wrong, I love YouTube. I'm so not hating on YouTube, but you just watch fear porn on YouTube all day and get all worked up. You're not a master of your emotions. You're not a master of your body. You're not a master of really your spirit.
Yeah.
You're just undisciplined, and why would a woman find that attractive?
Right.
You're chaotic.
Right. You are chaotic. Yeah, and so there are a lot of, I talked about this even on the last episode, the solo one. This exact topic, the amount I saw a series of polls brought together into a study by somebody, one of the research things, about the perception that young people have of the percentage of the population of women that has an OnlyFans account, and it's wildly disproportionate to the amount of women that actually have OnlyFans accounts.
I think that's true of anything, because people are viewing the world from their phone, and there are people that choose to input certain things on the internet that are not a real. If you go out in this tiny town that we're sitting in, we won't disclose.
Yeah.
But this tiny little East Texas town, the average person is pretty normal, level-headed. They may not be Thomas Edison, but the world is not just OnlyFans and child sacrifice.
Yeah, it's not all. This is what I talked about with Jason is the Whatever podcast.
Yeah,
it's not all that.
That dude is such a fag.
That dude sucks. That dude sucks. In a more civilized society, that dude would be. There'd be serious legal consequences.
Yeah,
for being that guy. Yeah. There are. Yeah, and dudes definitely, they want that. They want girls to, dude, you can't trust these hoes. They're all for the streets. Like, they want that. They want it that way. And if you find yourself in a situation where you are not the subject of positive thoughts from women, I would suggest to you that it is because that's what you want.
Right.
Not because girls suck or whatever. Like, girls are pretty sick, actually.
Yeah.
And they're very intelligent.
I like him so much I married one.
Yeah, I like girls so much I married one. Yeah, they can be very intelligent and very perceptive, and they can smell your stupid little bad attitude on you. And yeah, so make that adjustment for sure. So we're understanding how girls work. We're understanding how families work. We're understanding how money works. So our step one is understanding. It's education.
Yeah, you can't pursue something you don't understand, and you don't need to be able to write a doctoral thesis on it. Right, you just need to understand. Like, if I gave someone a car, you would want to know how to operate it, but you'd also want to know, to change the oil every 5,000 miles. Like, basic things. If you can understand and grasp those basics, that's your first step, in my opinion. You have your vision, and it doesn't need to be hyper particular. You want to pick like what is the essence of what I'm pursuing, and the particularities, I think, develop over time.
Yeah.
Like, I would think, in your example, the woman with the child in the house maybe didn't always have blonde hair, but probably over time it was blonde every time.
Right. It was blonde. It became blonde with a girlfriend I had in high school who was blonde.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but it wasn't always blonde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't need to like hyper fixate on knowing exactly where and when and how, but get your vision and then start understanding what it is you're looking at. And I think this is actually really where people mess up and why people are unsuccessful in getting towards their vision or accomplishing their vision, is they won't humble themselves to do what it takes to get there. And I think the ultimate example of this is spiritual. I think, let's say you're a young man and we're talking about the vision of successful, not crazy, bonkers wealthy with a yacht, but like, you don't struggle to pay the bills every month. You can make investments. You have a wife and you have children. That's and perhaps friends and community around you. If that's your vision and you start understanding the nature of marriage, you're going to have to face the reality that requires things of you. Okay? If you want a happy marriage, you're going to have to face the reality that you cannot be selfish, and you can't behave like a degenerate 18-year-old. You're going to have to be the man that can serve in your role as husband there.
Yeah.
You don't get to go out with the boys doing all kinds of retarded stuff. And I think that's where people really, they say they want something, but once they realize, wait a minute, I have to stop having sex with sluts, and I've got to start disciplining my body. I have to put the flesh into submission. They're like, you know what? I'd rather just indulge myself.
Yeah, I didn't want this. It turns out I didn't want this the whole time.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so, and you know what? Hey, like, it's not my life, so I hope people don't do that. But
we are certainly not here to try to make you want something you don't want.
Right.
If you don't want it.
But what I am saying is, don't get all worked up and upset saying you want something when clearly you don't really want it.
Right.
I think people like the idea of it, but they're divorcing the vineyard from the wine. They want the wine, but they don't want to build the vineyard that gives you the grapes for the wine.
Right. Certainly not. Certainly not. Yeah, I mean that was something that I dealt with for a long time. Was wanting all the things even that I would say I have now, and not realizing that that requires death. It requires the death of your old self. It requires sacrifice, and it doesn't. One of the things that I realized. So I probably said this a million times now at this point, but in my career, there's two jobs. You start out at an entry-level job, and then you get promoted, and you go to the outside sales world, strategic stuff. You get to talk to CEOs of big enterprise, multi-million-dollar companies. You make big deals. You get paid big commission checks. It's the job everybody wants, and everybody's competing for it. And when you're the little guy, you're the assistant to the big guy, and you're settling little deals, and you're helping the big guy with big deals, and you're sitting in all the calls for the big deals, and the big guy's going, all right, Ethan, go do this, send an email to that person, let's get this guy on the books, whatever. When you try to get into this account by talking to this person, it's very easy to look at the big guy and go, man, I can't wait to have his job and make cash money and have...
Get that Porsche.
Yeah, get that Porsche, have an executive title, and have basically I answer to the CEO. Everybody in the company has to listen to me, like all this stuff, and it's like very childlike. But you think you want all these things, and then you get it, and it hits you that it's obviously not more trouble than it's worth. Mm-hmm. But I definitely see how people fold. Because in your head, you're thinking about all the great stuff that you're going to get from it. You're not thinking about how stressful it can be to know that if you send an incorrect email, your company's going to lose $10 million, and you're going to look like a fool in front of everybody. Yeah. And I almost did that this week. We have a very big client that I've now been assigned to, my first real big one. And I sent an email to schedule a meeting, and I forgot to include the days for one of them. And so I almost scheduled a meeting at like a totally incorrect time on the opposite side of the week. That would have been a problem. Like it would
almost. Almost happened.
Yeah, it almost happened. I caught it, and I sent a correction email. But I would have wasted. Like the VP of my team, my boss's time. I would have wasted the CEO of this potentially gigantic. We don't know if it's real or not. It could be fraudulent, but the CEO of this like gigantic, tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue, like company's time, like it would have been bad, and I would have looked like a fool. Like multiple people would have shown up to different meetings and sat in a Zoom call for 10 minutes, and these are people whose like 10 minutes of their time is worth like a year.
Yeah, they get upset.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you can't. Yeah, so all that to say is that you need to be honest with yourself about what it is you want. You need to be honest with yourself about the level of effort that's going to come with things that you. The level of effort that's going to come with things that you want. And you also need to understand that there really is not ever Ever. There's never, ever going to come for you a time when it's all said and done and you get to kick back. It is every new thing that you want, that you achieve, is going to come with a new level of responsibility and problems that you now have to address. And you have to upgrade in order, because it's not like the things in your life that you dealt with before go away. It's an addition. So all the new responsibility you get from a new job or from a new kid or from a new house is in addition to the fact that you still have to do your laundry.
Right.
Is in addition to the fact that you still have to be there emotionally for your wife. Is in addition to the fact that you have to, having a new kid and being like, I really want 3 kids, and hitting 3 kids is not, it's not blissful. You're adding an additional child to the 2 children you still have to parent.
Right.
So you have to grow. And really, there's no, I mean, yeah, that's it. That's the point. Is that there's no moment where you get to lean back and look and watch the sunset and go, I did it. You get moments, fleeting moments of that. You get the dinner, the night you got the promotion, you get to go to dinner.
That's right.
That's it. That's what you get. And then that Monday, you better buckle up.
Yeah, it's gonna have to work harder. Yeah.
You get the wedding night. You get your wedding night. And then you have to go, you have to get on a plane with your wife and go, you have to travel and deal with the logistical chaos of traveling. And the reality of your marriage will set in within hours. So you get the blissful wedding night, and then reality comes the next day. And that's the reality of marriage.
Yeah.
The reality of marriage is not my wife sitting down in the sun playing with my daughter. That's a moment.
Marriage is work. It's all
hard.
work.
It's hard. Yeah, it's all work. Everything's work.
Yeah, everything's work. And so the key is doing work that is meaningful and worth it. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows having a wife and having kids, but it's the means by which we continue ourselves, and it's the means by which
we grow
whatever
the kingdom.
Whatever you do will be carried on. So I mean, that's why I think really, really selfish people don't either get married or they get divorced because they didn't want to put in that work, which is why they don't get the results.
Right. Oh, man, I had a really good point I just forgot. Dude, I'm never podcasting again with a hangover. It was a foolish thing to do.
It's a little late in the afternoon to still have a hangover. I thought we'd be over the hill by now.
We got up at 7 and went and got breakfast, and then we went back to the hotel and went back to sleep until we had to check out. So I've only been conscious, like really fully conscious, since like noon. It's effectively still just midday for me,
man,
right now.
That's nice.
Yeah, you get, and here's the thing, guys. You get, every once in a while, you get those moments of acting a fool with your wife, going to being kids again, going out. It's not like we've had now 4 wedding anniversaries. This is the first wedding anniversary that we've done something like this.
Yeah.
And so it's not even every wedding anniversary that you get to let your hair down and shirk your responsibilities for 24 hours. It's like for real, like once every 3 years, you get 24 hours to push everything else that you have either off to the next couple days or off onto someone else. And everything else is like constant diligence, and you can never let your guard down.
Then it's back to the vision.
And this is what I was going to say. I've made this point before, but I think it's worth making again, which is that you're absolutely right. You need to be doing the work that's fulfilling and that's worth it. But I think it's also incredibly helpful to teach yourself to love the struggle, to love the pain, to love the suffering, to find. The way I've done it is I've taught myself to find it humorous.
Yeah.
So when things go really, really bad, I think it's very funny, which sometimes can be offsetting to people. When my sister got divorced, I was laughing about it to my friends, and they would give me a lot of like weird looks, being like, "That's not good." But finding some way to enjoy And I might have to actually take that out. I just realized I forgot that my brother-in-law listens to this. I might have to take that out.
Yeah, I also didn't know that happened. I remember you talking about like it might happen. Okay.
Yeah. Brody, I'm sorry. I'll take this out.
You got to embrace the suck.
Yeah, you have to embrace that it sucks, and you have to enjoy it. Like, I guess you don't have to enjoy it, but it really is helpful if you come to love the struggle, love the pain.
Look, it's a part of the fabric of reality that struggle is not in and of itself a bad thing. There are bad things that can cause struggle that are objectively bad, but the struggle itself is not inherently bad. So if you think about any movie that moves you, that you watch it and you feel like the next day you can just accomplish whatever it is that you've been putting off, you feel some invigoration. What are those movies about? It's not even about the overcoming of struggle. It's also just about struggle.
Yeah.
It's about the English oppressing the Scottish and just killing them, raping them, and the fight against it. Because in that movie, really at the end, they say, oh, they did well, but the movie doesn't depict their overarching success following the death of William Wallace. The movie is about...
You're talking about Braveheart?
Yeah, Braveheart.
Okay, just to clarify.
Yeah. And that movie is about struggle.
Right.
And that's why it connects with so many people. If you think about a sports movie, like why are sports good? Why are they fun? It's because it's hard and it hurts, and
there's a winner and there's a loser.
Yeah, and you lose. At some point you will lose.
Yeah.
Nobody is that guy that has never lost.
Right.
And so that's you just got to understand that the struggle is not necessarily the point, but you'll never arrive at anything without struggle. There's nothing good that comes out of no struggle.
Right. Right. And my movie, not even a movie, but the sort of narrative story that I always think about that I even contextualize my own struggle, my own life with is The Lord of the Rings. I think it's those books,
the best fictional story
ever told. I think The Lord of the Rings is the culmination of the canon of the West in its ability to tell stories. I don't think that it's obviously not the end of the canon of the West, but the like technology of storytelling reached its apex in The Lord of the Rings.
I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I forget exactly where somebody said this or it was written down somewhere, but that Tolkien, part of his inspiration for writing it, beyond the language stuff, is the Anglo-Saxon people didn't really have a lot of mythology.
Okay.
And so his writing of The Lord of the Rings was kind of him writing an almost
he's creating mythology
for his people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's
I didn't know.
dope.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, the point that I was going to make is that the Lord of the Rings is not about Frodo getting the ring to Mordor. Mm-mm. It's not about that moment. It is about Frodo getting the ring. It's not about them defeating Sauron. Mm-hmm. It's about Frodo's journey. It's 3 books of this kid walking.
Yeah.
It's just how many bad things can you throw at this like indomitable person who won't give up? And they're not a bravado person. They're little. They can't fight. They can't defend themselves.
Yeah, it's not the main character syndrome of like I can just walk in and fix any situation. It's the meek and the lowly,
right,
existing in a world of seemingly overpowering struggle and darkness.
Yeah,
and you persist, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and that because that is what you are, and you do feel that way. People feel that way. I know it might be considered like cucked or whatever to say that you're meek, but you are that. You know that, you person listening to this podcast, like you know when you wake up in the morning or when you're going to bed at night and reality sinks in on you and you have nowhere else to hide. you know how you feel, and you feel helpless. You feel like Frodo. You feel little, and it isn't the swinging sword of Aragorn that saves Middle Earth. It isn't the immense power that Gandalf has that saves Middle Earth. It's Frodo's persistence.
Yeah,
it's the persistence of normal people. It's the not giving up that saves the world. And if you want to save your world, it's the not giving up. And in order to not give up, I think it's very critical that you learn to enjoy the struggle that comes with reality.
Yeah, it's the struggle that's going to make you. Let's go back to the linear nature of the vision. You have the vision, now you understand it. You understand the components of it.
Yeah.
And you make your first couple steps, which really is understanding them. And it's the persistence that will get you from where you took the first step to years down the line when you have reached the vision.
Yeah.
So persistence is the gasoline that gets you from point A to point B. Now there's going to be strategy, learning, things of that nature that would affect if you steer a little left, a little right, if you decide to go under the speed limit or go 80 miles an hour through the school zone at a certain point in life, whatever it is. But it's ultimately that persistence is that you keep moving forward no matter at what point in that linear story you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we need to probably go for at least another 20 minutes. So let's do this because I think we've gotten pretty practical, but I think we can get, especially in this is in the spirit of what Jason would like us to do.
Okay.
If Jason was here, he would like to get hyper practical.
Okay.
Now he's given a lot of testimony about his professional progress, how he ended up where he's ended up. I've given a little bit about mine, and you've obviously given none of yours so far. Now we have visions, and we went about getting to them. I think we can definitely burn another 20 minutes getting very practical in how the steps we took to go our particular path, so that if you have no idea what to do, maybe you can choose one of these paths and do something similar to it.
Yep.
Before we launch into that, I'll say this. You had a specific path. You had to go to law school. There were many requirements that you had to meet before you could achieve your goal, I would imagine.
Sort of, but I wouldn't consider being an attorney part of my goal because it really wasn't.
Okay. Well, then scratch that.
Yeah.
So what I'll say is this. If you do not have in your head, in your vision, it does not include a profession that you want to have, or if it's a profession that you can't materialize for free or while getting paid. So if you want to own a business, you obviously are going to have to spend a tremendous amount of effort and time and probably your own money up front for a few years before you ever see a dime. So you're going to have a job. One of the things I would say, and this is, obviously I'm biased, but this is the thing my dad told me, and it really, I think, was extremely helpful that he said this, and I've seen him save a lot of guys a lot of heartache by telling them this, which is that if you don't want to be a doctor, if you don't want to be a lawyer, if you don't feel like you have any particular set of skills that orients you towards a particular profession, the general practice of selling things is a wonderful alternative, because you don't have to be passionate about anything to sell well, and you can make a lot of money, and you can get into a place where you're making a lot of money not working that hard, so you can go focus on the thing that you really do care about.
Yeah, sales is something I think is really misunderstood. You have the obvious nature that if you're paid based on a volume of sale, like you're paid on commission, your job is more tied to an easily seen thing of sales. There's a easier connection to make, but every single job and every single relationship is involving selling.
Right.
So, if you're a attorney,
anytime you do a job interview, you are selling yourself.
Yeah, you're selling yourself. If you're an attorney, you're selling an argument to a judge, to a jury, or you're selling a client on the fact that either the value you're providing or the unique expertise you have is something worth paying for.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be doing something as simple as like sidewalk washing with a power washer.
Sure.
You can sell them in several different ways, but ultimately you're selling them that your service is valuable, or you're better than somebody else, or you're cheaper than somebody else, whatever. So if you aren't good at selling, you should start getting good at selling, even if you're not going to be in a commission sales job.
Yeah, yeah. So that being said, talk to me a little bit about when you decided attorney was the path. Talk to me about the things you feel like you did that were key in getting into law school, getting a job as an attorney, and then the actions you've now done that you feel have made you successful.
So I would say the story of this definitely progresses from not well thought out, and it builds over time into what I think is how people should be. Yeah. So I was a junior at college, undergrad, and that's kind of the time where you got to start thinking about what you're going to do. Yeah. I did nothing but do whatever I wanted all the time. I really was not good at school, barely really went to class. I really shouldn't have gone to college. I was just a kid that wanted to party, and not even like party hard, but I wanted to not go to class and like go work out for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I got to junior year. I'm like, okay, in a sense that vision I've had, I'm like, I've got to actually put a nose to the grindstone. I have to do something. I'm going to be leaving college. And I thought about where I wanted to live. I wanted to live in either East Texas or Arkansas in a semi-rural or rural environment. And I was in the marketing part of the business school and focus on sales, and I was really good at it. Yeah. Like, I was the student in the newly developed sales program that the professor overheading it, I was the guy he would have meet with companies.
Yeah.
As like, hey, like this is kind of what we're putting out. And it was just a practical analysis of, okay, I want to live in a town of 100,000 or less people, and really outside that town. I don't want to live in it. I can maybe work there and live in a town of like 5,000. And I was like, it's really hard to find a sales job where you're making minimum, like my minimum was 70, 80K. And this is before the inflation of COVID. Yeah. And this is also before the huge hockey stick of remote work.
Yeah.
So like the concept of working from home just was not an option widely known.
Right.
So I just did a pretty elementary analysis. I want to live in this place. I want to make this much money. These types of jobs in this like more corporate sales environment don't exist there.
Yeah.
So pivot. What can I do? And again, this may not be your circumstance, but it was mine, where I really could afford to go to further education. Like, I had financial provision from my parents, and when I applied to law school, I got really almost all of it paid for in terms of the tuition. So I'm sitting there, I'm saying cost benefit analysis. I don't want to live in DFW or Houston making X amount of money in the sales job when I want to live here. Right. That's the vision. I'm going to the vision. I'm not going to deviate. So I have to pivot. Okay, if I'm not going to do sales, what is something you can earn a high income in a smaller town?
Yeah.
And my mind immediately went to doctor or lawyer. There's a reason why that stigma exists, because in small towns, the people that usually make a lot of money are doctors or lawyers.
Yeah.
Said, I'm not smart enough to be a doctor. I bet I could get through law school.
Yeah.
And so I applied to a whole mess of places, ended up staying in Texas, got a really great scholarship. And I didn't enjoy law school at all. Didn't think I would. It was just, I'm going to walk out of here with a law degree. I'm going to have the flexibility to move to either the area we live in now or some other small area in the state. And so while I was in law school, just like I was in the business school, you kind of start figuring out what is it you're going to actually do as an attorney.
Yeah.
There's a zillion things you can do as an attorney. And I took all these classes and I was like, well, I could be a litigator because I'm really comfortable public speaking. I'm really comfortable with confrontation, and I don't get emotionally rattled.
Right.
And that could have worked out just fine. But what I found, like working internships, I worked at a courthouse, I worked for an attorney that does litigation, is I didn't care for the instability of hours. You know, you may have a couple days with no work, like chilling with your family, and then you have a hearing or a trial coming up, and you go home at 10 p.m. and get up at 6 a.m. I was like, I like a stable kind of hourly kind of thing. And so between my experience, I tried things. Like I worked in a courthouse, so now I know what a courthouse looks like. And remember, you're in the summertime. This is really good if you're in this position, or if you have some other reason where you have a couple months in between stuff, go insert yourself into something.
Yeah. Yes.
Because everything else you read about, whatever, it won't be real unless you're there. So I was like, I think it'd be really advantageous to know how a judge thinks.
Yeah.
Like when he's reading emotion, how is he going to analyze it, whatever. So I worked there, and then I worked for a litigator. But I specifically picked this firm. It's still one of the biggest firms in town. Half the firm does property, oil and gas work, and the other half's litigation. So what I did is I worked for the side that I could work at, because that side was still in the office during COVID.
Yeah.
So I just took it. Yeah. But I was always interested in like property, oil and gas kind of things. And so I knew if I could just get in the door, I could meet some of those people, kind of pick their brain. And I did. I met a guy that I ended up more or less working for that worked on the other side of the firm. So and I should go back. This is when I talk about creating a strategy, and it doesn't have to be complicated. The way I got all these jobs in a town I have zero connections in, and I mean zero. I would, on a weekday I didn't have class, I drove 3 hours here, and I started handing out resumes and introducing myself. I literally Googled attorneys.
Yeah.
Handed out 40 resumes. And that's what I mean when people are like, how could I ever go start a career in a town I've never been in?
Yeah.
It's not complicated. Just go do something about it. And it may not like pan out in the first day. I literally just handed out resumes, and not only did I hand out resumes, I met all the attorneys in Tyler.
Yeah.
So even though they may not remember me now, I got to kind of get a feel for them, their office, and this is all information that I'm intaking. So I worked 2 summers here, and I'm just getting through law school. I mean, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to get out of law school. Really, you just study for the bar. That's all you do, and that's what I did. Took the bar, and I got a job at that firm I interned for it's a big firm, either litigation or property law. And I worked there, and what I found is working on the other side of that firm is wildly different than the side I worked at.
Okay.
So I thought, I'm going to get a job at one of the biggest firms. It's going to be so great. I can basically go to any practice area I want. I, at the time, thought the pay structure was good, the way it was set up. Definitely found out it was not for several reasons. And I think I worked there for 4 months. And there was issues with pay. There was issues with disorganization. There were lots of things that I wanted nothing to do with, and I was ready to move.
Yeah.
And this is getting back to the things you do in your steps 2, 3, and 4 couldn't play a huge role in your step 10 and 12. What happened is my buddy from law school was needing a job, and I had met all these attorneys over the years. And he had reached out to me, and I said, I've already accepted a job, and I'm not one to go back on my word on that, but I've got a buddy that needs a job. Yeah. He says, great, hook me up. So my buddy moves to town, and he's working there. And this is really the guy I wanted to work for. His phone call was just 4 months too late when he called me. Within a month of him working there, they have an attorney just leave. Like, I'm not even going to be in tomorrow kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sick.
So I get a text, hey, we just lost a guy. Do you want me to put your name in the hat? And I was like, yeah, get me a meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I did. So I got to come into the law firm, work for the guy I really have always wanted to work for. But there were decisions made months and years prior that made that possible, and you don't always anticipate that.
Right.
But that's what I mean by staying with the vision, because I never lost the vision of where I wanted to live, and I adjusted what I was going to do to fit that. And then when I figured out what I was going to do, I started making decisions, but it was really the little steps along the way that allowed me to get further along in my vision. So by me meeting all those attorneys, I had multiple attorneys reaching out to me.
Yeah.
When I got done with the bar exam. And that's how I knew this is the guy I want to work for, because he's great. I was able to connect him with a friend of mine. So I get a buddy a job. Now I have another homie in town. That's huge. You got to have friends.
Yeah.
I got a guy in town. Now he's there for 1 month. He gets to tip me off. So instead of them calling 10 attorneys, including me maybe, I don't have to compete in 10 rounds of interviews. Right. I'm there the next morning.
Right.
So it's if you keep the vision and you just do what needs to be done 1 step and 2 steps ahead of you, you do not need to get 8 steps down. You just need to make those 1s and 2s, and that's what I did. And so anyways, all that to say, that was kind of my story of how I got to live where I wanted to live, how I've got the job now. It was really a combination of keeping the vision, understanding what steps were immediately ahead of me. I didn't know what area I wanted to practice in when I was in my second year. So what I did is I just met every attorney I could and introduced myself, tried to figure out a place I could learn the most, which was a huge firm, practiced in a bunch of stuff, and those little things ended up really paying off.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's kind of the summation of the story.
Okay. I like it. What would you... Well, here, I'll do this. I'll do it this way. So you are definitely an analytical planner.
Yes.
I am not.
Mm-hmm.
The motto I've lived my life by since I was 20 years old is minimum preparation, maximum effort. I have maximum effort embroidered inside the suit that I got married in.
Okay. I like effort. Effort's good.
Yes, effort is good. The thing I would say that defines the defining characteristic, the thing that I think would most easily, you could most easily point to in my career, the thing that brought me to success was openness.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always willing to have a conversation about anything. And I was never cynical. Even when I was cynical, I would say, you're being cynical. You need to be optimistic about whatever's happening right now. You need to have this conversation. 2 weeks ago, I got contacted by an HR person They said that they have a job potentially. Would you like to talk about this job? I said, yeah, of course. Right before I go into the interview, the day before, I get another message from this person describing the job a little bit to me, and it's just not. Mm-hmm. It's not what I'm looking for. And without spending too much time, I was just in a place career-wise of kind of great despair when that happened. Mm-hmm. And so there was a real, I read the message to my wife, and then I was like, I looked up into the air and I put my hands up and I went, what do you want from me? I was so frustrated and I felt so discouraged because I thought that it was this was it. And, but I thought, stay optimistic, be a happy person, do not be cynical, be open. So you just take the call. Mm-hmm. You know that it's a bad job, but just take the call. And so I took the call. The person, my now boss, described the job to me. And it was exactly, it's not what I'm looking for. And I just said, hey, listen, I really appreciate you thinking of me. This is what I need. This is what I'm looking for. I need the job. I would need a job in order to justify moving right now. I would need a job that does this. Mm-hmm. And I just said that. And I was declining in my head, I was declining the offer.
Right.
I was ending the conversation in a polite way. Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, what if I just made the job that? And I went, well, that would be quite nice.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, give me a couple hours. Let me talk to HR. I bet I can get that done. And I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, okay. I'll message you at the end of the day. And I was like, sounds great.
It's like Burger King. Have it your way.
Right. So a week later, I'm in this position that people fight their entire careers for. So I would say openness is the thing that has defined my progress. What would you, if you had to put, would you say planning is yours? Would you say analysis is your, what would be the thing that defined your progress or that pulled your progress forward the most?
I think that if there was one thing I could point to, and it's not really I guess it is a practice thing. I never lost sight of what I was trying to get to.
Okay.
So
focus.
Yeah. I would say focus and persistence, and not in a hype, rah kind of, just pedal to the metal kind of thing. That's great if that's your thing. But it was just a quiet, consistent, just always moving in that direction. So I found where I wanted to live and had an idea. Obviously, if I'm in law school, I'm going to be an attorney, at least for some time. And I didn't get distracted. So there was, at this time, the world of lawyers really was actually in a good direction. It was not that hard to get jobs as an attorney, which is not that common. Usually there's way more law school graduates than there are jobs. But this was not the case. And there was places that paid a lot more money. And I could have said, okay, I could stay in DFW and I could make 30, 40, 50, 75% more money and do that for 3 years, put it in the bank. Then when I move, I can maybe pay a house cash. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's not a good strategy, but it wasn't part of my vision.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be married, raising children for 3 to 5 years in DFW.
Yeah.
That wasn't what I was there for. That wasn't what I was doing. So I would say not getting distracted, and really that's not getting scared.
Yeah. Yes.
I think a lot of people, they make maybe 10% of their progress to where they're trying to get to. And I don't know why. I don't really deal with self-destructive stuff. That's just not me, so I don't really care. But it seems like a lot of people do that. They're going the right way. They're doing the right thing. And then they're like, oh, I think I'm gonna go take a trip to Europe. I'm like, that's not part of your vision. What do you like? What is that?
Yeah, you're going to put your life on hold for 2 years to go backpacking? Yeah. That's true. That does happen a lot.
So I would say mine is just focus and persistence. And I don't have some cool 0 to hero story where I'm sleeping in my buddy's bedroom closet because I can't. Like, I don't have that story.
Yeah.
It's also just not me. But I just kept going towards what I wanted. And in many ways, I've achieved what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I would say just staying focused and not getting distracted has been the number one. There's many things, but that's probably number one.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to try to burn like 8 more minutes here.
Okay.
So my story is a little bit, or the path that I took, I think it's a good juxtaposition to yours, because I think it gives a good, you could extrapolate out some good general principles to go at the same problem from a different direction. Mm-hmm. So I was very disordered. And for a part of the earliest parts of my life where I was an adult man, I was disordered on purpose. Mm-hmm. I liked it that way. And I thought order was bad. Mm-hmm. I was in college. I was in a fraternity, and I was the social chair, which is very funny that I thought I was very postmodern in the way I believed, and consciously so. Mm-hmm. But it was so ingrained in like hierarchical structures, and I enforced them very strongly. And listen, you don't behave like this in front of women. Like it's very funny, very hypocritical. But
pick and choose.
Yeah, pick and choose. I just went with whatever made me feel good, and so and I did not have any vision. And well, that's not true actually at all. So I wanted to be a reporter. Mm-hmm. And now I'm formally trained as a writer, and that's what I was in school for. I got into a pretty, not an Ivy League by any means, but a pretty big deal. Like you can kind of pick where you want to go work if you graduate from this place kind of school. And if I tell you where it is, then I'll dox myself, because you can look it up and my name will be there. So I can't say, but I went to this school. I was a journalism major, and I got in trouble. Mm-hmm. I got in trouble because I started asking why I don't even know if I can say this detail without. Surely I can say this without revealing too much. I started asking around the city and around the school administration why the wind turbines that had been the school had paid millions of taxpayer dollars had millions of taxpayer dollars paid to have built to power the school's gigantic new stadium. Mm-hmm. Why were they never turning? Why are we not turning these on?
It's a fair question.
I got in trouble.
Yeah.
And then I also, you've heard the story about I got slapped.
Yes.
I was being intentionally provocative, and so I got uninvited to re-enroll in that school. And in response to the necessity of needing something else to do, I went into political science, which was already, if you're a journalism major, that's already a political science degree. It's the same thing, same degree. So I was doing that for a little while, and ultimately I just ended up having to leave school, just out of necessity, because it was not a good environment. I was too successful at being social, and not successful academically. And I also should not have ever gone to college. Mm-hmm. Should never have gone to college. I should have just started writing. So I had to go home, basically. I had to leave. And so I went home. I was there for a while, and somebody from some of my fraternity brothers, they lived in Austin at that point, and they just asked me, do you want to come, you want to live down here? We need a new roommate. And I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have anything going for me. I had started going to school here for a semester, but it was just to kill time. I didn't know what else to do. So I went down there and got a job started going to school online, and the opportunity presented itself to, my dad's in tech sales, so he'd been trying to get me to do that for a while because he knew that that's what I needed to be doing. And the opportunity presented itself to jump in there, and it was just, to say the opportunity presented itself, it was just I needed a job, and there was a job at a company in Austin that was open. There was an entry-level sales position, and I took it. And at that level, those jobs are everywhere, a dime a dozen, and they'll hire anybody. You don't have to have a college degree. I don't have a college degree. I don't have a high school diploma.
Just need a warm body.
They just need a warm body. So I was a warm body for 6 months, and then my dad had one of the vendors that his company used had a job open up, and my dad was like a direct stakeholder, somebody who interacted all the time with this vendor, somebody who sold them a service, and so my dad was like, oh, well, my son does this, whatever. And they were like, well, I mean, he's our customer. We have to give his son an interview. We can't not give him an interview. So I interviewed and did well, got the job, and worked there for, I think, 8 months or a year or something. And then COVID hit and I got laid off. And I got laid off in a funny way. I got laid off by a guy who had a messed up arm and like a really disgusting mangled arm. Like it looked like his arm got like caught in like a lawnmower or something. And obviously in a room full of adults, nobody cared about his arm. And he had this like aura of, I don't care about my arm, but it consumed him, consumed everything he thought about. And it was very, very weird. So I got fired. The company that if you can go on at some point, if I ever dox myself, I will read the Glassdoor to this company. It's very funny. When they do layoffs, they tell everybody it's their fault. They fire people individually, not in a layoff fashion. Tell people it's their fault. Then I'll do severance. All this. It's really, really shady stuff. But I got fired for hitting my quota too fast, which is very funny.
That's rarely a problem, and
I can't imagine why you'd get upset about that. But yeah, I got fired for hitting my quota too fast, and again, it was just this. It was just being the solution to that problem of being fired. Just came from being open. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do broadcasts. I wanted to do writing. I did not want to hold a corporate job again. I hated it. I hated working under that job. And so for a long time during COVID, I pushed off getting a job for as long as I could. And there was a lot of free money, and so that was really easy. And finally, after several conversations with my parents, that openness that had found me success in the past returned, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to be open to solutions to this problem of joblessness, of unemployment, because I'm dead set on being a writer. I'm dead set on being a broadcaster. I'm dead set on these other things. I'm going to open up to this idea that maybe I'm going to do something else for a little while, and that's where I found the job I just got promoted from. But the point that I was ultimately trying to make, which I failed to make in telling that story originally, is that I was open to each point in that story. The move from a journalism major to political science, that was kind of forced. But the move to go home and then go to school at home, like I had a very, very clear image in my head of what I wanted the next year to look like. And when I had to go home, that was a very harsh lesson in acceptance and in openness. And in being like, at the time I would not have said, God has this plan for me, obviously, and I need to submit to that. But that is what was happening. And when I got home, I created a plan. And I started back at school at home. And my boys asked me to move with them. And I just stayed open. I just said, okay, yeah, I've got an opportunity here. I'm going to be open to that opportunity. And I took it. And it got me to Austin. And when I was in Austin, I met my wife. And I started my career that exists now. And I just took the first job that was presented to me when I got there. I was just open to that opportunity. And that job sucked. But I learned a lot. And then I was open to the next first job. I just took it. And I think that ties into what you were talking about, or what you mentioned earlier, is having the humility to do what's necessary, to take those small steps. And each job, it felt beneath me. It didn't feel like I should be doing it. I was surrounded by drooling, window-licking retards. And I just kept staying open to the idea that this is where I need to be, this is what needs to happen. And I never turned down an opportunity. And so openness was this thing that let me kind of achieve my vision in a roundabout way, but I ultimately got where I wanted to be. And so there was very little, I want to be I don't want to be in the Houston or Dallas DFW area, and I could make 75% more or whatever. I could do this. I don't want to. There was very little analysis, and there was much more reaction. And so I think that's a real problem that I see with, I wouldn't say young guys that we know, or at least that I know, because the young guys that I know right now are all at church. And it's just like, they're just like all stellar dudes who are just fine.
Just pews and pews of Jigga Chads.
Yeah, just chilling.
Killing it.
Yeah. But on the internet, I see tons of on the internet, and actually people that I know, like people outside of church. Like my mom's a therapist, and so she knows a lot of young guys who are in real dire straits, need help, and they are not open to anything. Yeah. They are open to smoking weed and having and complaining about why things are not the way they think they should be. And so that's the thing I would say is the piece of I think Chase's practical advice here is to stay focused, and I think mine is to stay open. Stay open to
and those are not mutually exclusive.
Certainly not. Certainly. I think they can sound mutually exclusive. But I don't think they are, because focusing on the goal, I think, even requires openness.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, let's say you're on one end of a forest and on the other end is where you're trying to get to. There is more than one way to cut through the forest to get there.
Yeah, and if you get fixated on one way and it turns out it's not going to work that way,
right? You may be going through the briar.
You have to adapt. You have to be open.
So that's what I mean is you got to figure out what your vision is. So, for example, my vision was actually tied to a piece of geography.
Yeah.
And so I didn't lose that.
Yeah.
But if that's not in your vision, then you should absolutely be open to move wherever. Like, especially if you're a young guy and you're like, maybe going to work a trade, like instead of going to college, you do welding or, if you can go work in the oil fields, you're going to make so much more money than me. Like, it's not even
crazy.
Funny.
It's crazy how much money those guys make.
Like if I was a young dude, I
don't know, dude. I don't know that I would advise a young dude to go make that much money. I watched so many 19-year-olds ruin their lives.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't think they ruin their lives just because they made money. I think it just revealed. I think money reveals.
They would have ruined it no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They would have gotten some girl knocked up or whatever.
Yeah. You're right.
So my point is, if you're in a position in life and you don't have a vision that's tied to geography, but let's say a big part of your vision is creating a huge nest egg. Get a trailer, go drive work pipeline, and go out to West Texas or New Mexico, build pipeline, make a ton of money, live in your trailer, just eat normal foods, don't go drinking, don't do drugs. If that works in your vision, then great. But the thing is I'm not open to that because part of my vision is actually here.
Yes.
And I'm married, so I wouldn't recommend being married and working in the oil field personally. But all that to say, it's going to be what you're open to is going to be dependent on the actual vision itself.
Yes.
So I wasn't open to moving to Montana,
right?
Which Montana's dope. So anyone listening in Montana, I'm not hating. It's just cold. But
Bob Fudge is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh, dude,
what a song, dude!
What a banger!
What a song! My wife, she likes the song, but dude, when it starts, she's like, "Oh God, here we go! I'm gonna have to listen to this 3 times in a row."
I think the rule is you have to smoke at least 2 Marlboro Reds while listening to that song.
Yeah, you have to get at least 30 years older.
Right.
When that song plays, you
Minimum.
have to become old. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have grizzled hands. Yeah.
Charcoaly voice.
Yes. So you can't move to Montana because your goal was to stay here.
Right. And
Right.
so, but my point is if this geography wasn't particular to me, I would have been open to moving somewhere. If it's going to, what you're open to is going to be dictated by what your actual vision is. If your vision's real vague, you're going to be way more open. If it's very particular, you're going to have to start closing some of that off so you don't get distracted.
Yeah. And if your vision is the point that I wanted to make earlier about the sales thing is if your vision is real vague, just go into sales. Go sell something.
Just make money.
Yeah. And that's the best, dude. Here's how you make money. You get close to the money.
It's very simple.
You get close to it. Go sell because when you're selling something, someone has to hand you the money. Mm-hmm. And then you get to take your little bit off the top, put it in your pocket, and hand it to your company. And everybody else has to have their value to the organization assigned by the interpretations of the people who run the organization. Mm-hmm. Salespeople get to go, well, I made you $4 million last year. You're going to tell me I don't get 5% of that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you have a vague vision, go sell. Dude, sell cars. It doesn't matter. Just go sell something.
Yeah. But
yeah, yes, I think the thing that is the repeated over and over and over again on Work Hard is that there's balance, and so there needs to be balance between openness and there needs to be balance between focus. So if you are focused on something specific, there is going to be a limit to your openness, and if you are focused on something vague, there's going to be a much broader range of openness that you're going to be able to exist in, and that's your balance there. Don't get ideological about anything other than the redeeming nature of Christ. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing you can really get religious about. So,
and we get real religious.
Mm-hmm. All right, dude. There we go. I think that'll be enough. So even after I edit this down, this will be 2 hours. So sick, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
It was a pleasure.
I know 2 hours on a Saturday is extremely valuable. So I thank you very much for it. It was a huge favor to me. This would have been an awful audio recording if I had to do it by myself again. So I appreciate it.
We pick each other up.
We pick
even when we're hungover.
Even when we're hungover. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Work Hard. I'm praying for you. I love you. Jason's praying for you. He loves you. Pray for yourselves. Attend a church. Find a vision. Focus on it, and be open to possible paths. Anyways, have a good evening. Bye-bye.